All right, guys, so these are the instructions for your egg osmosis lab. So if you picked up your lab box from school, you have a baggie in your box that has a bowl of chocolate syrup and a bowl of distilled white vinegar. So that's what you'll need for this lab. If you did not pick up your box or if something happened to your box or your stuff inside, that's okay. If you have these, you should have these items at home, and you can use those and just use bowls as your house, okay? If you don't have chocolate syrup, then you can use corn syrup or Karo syrup, any syrup that's very sugary, pancake syrup even. Um, any of those will be fine, okay? So these are the materials for our lab. We're going to have a balance at school that we take the mass of the eggs before and after we put them in the solutions to see if there's any change, and we will give you that data. You're going to have 2 chicken eggs, just regular chicken eggs that you get at the grocery store and scramble up. You're going to have 2 of those. You're going to have a bowl of chocolate syrup, a bowl of vinegar, and a bowl of tap water. Okay. So the very first thing you're going to do is we're going to have to dissolve the shell off of the eggs, off of the 2 eggs. So they start out looking like normal eggs, as you can see in our little picture. And then once we dissolve the shell off, they're going to start looking like this egg. Okay. So what the vinegar does when we put the eggs in the vinegar breaks through those proteins in the shell and it dissolves the shell. So I did a couple extra eggs just in case. I have really bad luck with them popping. So I put my eggs in the vinegar, and after a couple hours, you're going to start seeing this foam that comes on the top of the eggs, and that's just the shells that are breaking down. It's totally normal. It's okay. So you're going to leave your eggs in the vinegar for between 24 to 48 hours. And usually it's just around 24, but you can feel on the eggs themselves if they still feel a little bit hard to the touch. Like you don't even have to squeeze them, just touch them with your finger. If it still feels like a shell, then they need to stay in there a little bit longer. And it's good if you rotate them around a little bit. Now, if it doesn't feel hard, but there's still like a white coating, the best thing you can do is to take the egg out of the vinegar and to run it under some kind of cool tap water and just gently rub it with your fingers. And it'll kind of help wash off the rest of that shell. And if there's still a little bit left, that's totally fine. It's not going to mess up your experiment. All right. So this is what your eggs are going to look like, and while they're dissolving the shell. And then when it's time to act, when they're ready and you've taken off all the shells, they're going to look like this. Okay. So I have my 2 eggs and they are ready to be put into their solutions. All right. So we're going to take the mass of them first. The mass of these eggs, the one that's going to go in the water, the first one is 85 grams, and the egg that goes in the second one is 86 grams. Okay, so go ahead and write that down. That's going to be your data for your initial mass. That's your starting mass of each egg. And then we'll take the mass again once they have been in their solutions. Okay, back to our eggs. Now that we have our eggs prepared to put into the solutions, we're going to do that. So we're going to put 1 egg in a container with our syrup and 1 egg in a container with our tap water. Now, if you don't have your bowls that we gave you, that's fine. You just need a bowl where you can, where it's fairly deep so that your egg can sit down in the solutions. So I'm going to show you what mine look like. I just use little teacups. You can use coffee cups or bowls, whatever you have, or just a regular glass even. So I use teacups. So this first picture is what my eggs look like when I put them in the teacups. And then this is my cup with the tap water, and this is my cup with my egg. And what you'll notice is that your egg is going to rise to the top in the cup or the bowl that has the syrup in it, and that's okay because it'll still work. Even if you put more on top of it, it's still going to rise to the top. It has to do with the density of it, but it should stay underneath in the water. So you'll leave these in your solutions for 24 hours, and then you'll check on them and see what they look like, if there's any change. And then you're going to write down your data that you see. Okay. So the first thing, now that we've put our eggs in our solutions, that we need to do is we need to write our hypotheses. So You're going to write a hypothesis for each egg. So for egg one that's in the water, you're going to write an if then because statement. So if I put my egg in the water, then this is going to happen to the egg because. So is it going to get bigger? Is it going to shrink? Is it going to disintegrate? What do you think is going to happen? Okay. And remember, if you're wrong, that's okay. That just means that we're learning from it. Even if we're wrong, that's totally fine. And then you're going to do the same thing for the egg in the syrup. If I put my egg in the syrup, then this is going to happen because, and you give me your reason because. So is it going to get bigger, smaller? Is it going to explode? Is it going to disintegrate? Like, what's going to happen? What do you think? Okay. So pause the video and go ahead and write your claims right now. All right, now that you've written your claims, there's one more part of our data that we have to do before we look at our results. Okay. So our qualitative data, we've already done part of our quantitative, right? Because we took our mass of our egg. So our qualitative is what we're seeing. So we're going to describe what the egg looks like and feels like at the beginning of this experiment. So obviously it doesn't look like a normal egg. And if you have not had the chance to do this at home, the egg kind of feels like a rubber ball, like it's kind of bouncy and smushy. And it looks not exactly like a cell, but it represents the cell. Okay. So we have our membrane around the outside of the egg that's kind of rubbery. And then we have the liquid inside, which is our yolk of our egg, but that is the same thing as our cytoplasm. And then we have our nice little yolk, which is going to be our nucleus. Okay. So it feels kind of rubbery and bouncy. All right. So you're going to describe what it looks like and feels like. And then the rest of our information we are going to do on day 2 when we have run our experiment. This is day 2 of our egg lab. So here are what our eggs look like after 24 hours in their solutions. So you can see that our egg in the water has definitely gotten larger. It's a little harder to tell about our egg in the chocolate syrup, but if you see this kind of lighter color that is surrounding the egg, that's actually where the liquid has come out of the egg and kind of thinned out the chocolate syrup just a little bit. So let's go ahead and finish up our quantitative data chart, and then we can jump into our qualitative data. So our final mass for our egg in the water is 95 grams, and our final mass for our egg in the syrup is 74 grams. So now we're going to calculate the change in mass for each egg. So we're going to take the final mass and we're going to subtract the initial mass. So for our egg in the water, we're going to take 95 and subtract 85, and that equals 10 grams because it gained 10 grams of mass in the water. And then for egg number 2, we're going to take 74 grams and subtract 86 grams, which gives us negative 12 grams because our egg lost mass. So it got smaller. So we're going to have a negative number. All right, so now let's take a look at our eggs a little bit closer so you can see what they look like. So here on the left-hand side, we have our egg in the water compared to what it looked like, and it's a little bit more difficult to tell, but they did gain a lot of mass. The egg itself is a lot more full, so it feels like if you press on it, it might burst. Where before, when we started out, it felt kind of rubbery. And then our egg that was in the syrup is a lot smaller, and it's kind of absorbed some of that color just a little bit from our chocolate syrup, but it's a lot more deflated, almost like a water balloon that hasn't been filled up quite enough, or one that's been sitting out for a while. It feels kind of like there's some air in there now and not just full of liquid, okay? And as you can see, we have our 95 grams here and our 74 grams here. All right, so now we're going to finish up our qualitative data. So you're going to answer number 2 and 3 today. So describe what the egg looks like and feels like after it has been in the first solution, the water, for 24 hours. And then you're going to do the same thing for the egg that was in the syrup. So go back and take a look at the eggs and also remember what my descriptions of them were like. So go ahead and pause the video and write that for me in complete sentences. All right, now it's time for our commentary. So just like in our gummy bear lab, we have to use our data, both our quantitative and our qualitative, to determine if our hypotheses or our claims were correct. Okay. So answers the questions. Did your data support your hypothesis? So you're going to look at your data and look at what your hypothesis was for each egg, and you're going to use that data to say, yes, I was correct. This data supports my hypothesis, or no, I was not correct in my claim, and my data does not support my hypothesis. You will not get it wrong. You're not going to get points off if you got it wrong. It's just you have to use that data to support it or to say that I didn't get it correct. Then how did your egg change? Your eggs specifically, each one, and then what will happen if you were to switch the eggs? So to put the egg that was in the water into the chocolate syrup and put the egg that was in the chocolate syrup into the water, will they change? And explain your ideas about how that would happen. And so you're going to write this on the next page in your notebook. And if you want to, you can actually switch your egg. So you can put your egg that was in the water into the chocolate syrup, and you can put your egg that was in the chocolate syrup into the water and see what happens. All right, so good luck on your commentary. Make sure you check with your teacher on how she wants you to turn in your CDC for your eggs, and ask if you have any questions at all.